Dale Ho is the director of the ACLU's Voting Rights Project. Joins me on set. Dale, good to have you here. All right, so just 2% of African Americans said they had problems voting in 2012. So explain, 2%, that's an example of progress, isn't it?
It's an example of significant progress. Back in 1965, when the Voting Rights Act was signed into law, in a lot of states in the South, African American registration rates were below 25%. In Mississippi, they were below 7%. The Voting Rights Act has been called one of the most significant civil rights statutes in our nation's history, and that's because in the years after that, those numbers skyrocketed.
All right, so meanwhile, as we look at a crackdown on what voter ID laws have meant modern times, laws in Kansas and Tennessee in 2014, it reduced turnout by 2 to 3% during the 2012 election, enough to swing a very close vote with the highest drop-off among young, black, and newly registered voters. Do you expect to see a similar issue come up with 2016?
I think it's a significant risk. A lot of these laws, these strict voter identification laws, remain in effect. And as you pointed out, the nonpartisan GAO conducted a study and found that these laws dropped turnout about 2% in Kansas and Tennessee. It's not just voter identification laws, though. We're seeing attacks on voting like cutbacks to early voting and
sold to the polls, things like that. Explain the myth and bust the myth, though, about fraud.
Sure. The people who advocate these laws say they're necessary to prevent in-person voter impersonation, someone showing up at the polls and pretending to be someone that they're not. But time after time, when these laws have been litigated in court, states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina can't point to a single example in those states' histories of someone actually doing that. Texas, in litigation over its law, found 2 examples in a period of over 10 years when millions of votes were cast. It's not an epidemic or even a significant problem.
Okay, Dale Ho from the ACLU. Dale, great to have you here. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Coming up next.